Hey everybody, I am long overdue for an around the world update, and unfortunately I still don't have my fish room fully put back together. I'm still in the process of working on some stuff, so we're going to do the best we can. We can't go all the way around the world again this time, but we can do pretty close. This is my 29-gallon miscellaneous where we start every week. Nothing really going on in here. You can see how low the water level is, and how tannin stained the tank is. I've actually got some grunge growing on the front glass, which almost never happens in this tank. I'm actually going to have to get in there and wipe the glass down a little bit. I haven't done a water change on this tank, and I can't remember how long. I've really been neglecting my tanks down here as of late. I've been sort of on a mad rush to get caught up and get all the tanks back up to snuff, and this is pretty much, it's not the last one I have to do. I still have to work on my 125, but we'll get to that. This one is the most urgent though. In fact, when I'm done this video, this is my evening's project, is to get in here, do a water change, change the filters, wipe the glass down, etc. So that's all that's really going on in this tank. I will show you my red-clawed crab tank is out here in the middle of the floor because of said construction projects that we got working on right now, and that's what makes it a little kind of difficult to get around, and I've got stuff all in the middle of the floor, and so it's going to be sort of an odd around the world update here. So this is my Gourami tank. If you don't already know, I've added some new fish in here. That's the most significant change in this tank. I've done a water change and removed a bunch of plants, you know, typical kind of stuff. The only thing really new in here is my new fish. I've got 3 new pearl gouramis, and I've got 1 new young moonlight. And the adult existing moonlight doesn't seem real happy about the presence of the new one. So hopefully as the new one gets a little bigger, we'll sort that out. Worst case scenario, we'll just have them living at opposite ends of the tank. But I don't think there's going to be any serious aggression issues where I'm going to have to worry about one killing the other or anything like that. And then of course the little pearl gouramis are a completely different species, and this moonlight here doesn't really mind them much at all. So I also got in and opened up this cave again a little while ago. That rock there on the left, that light colored rock in the middle that's sort of propping that flat rock up, that collapsed. My striped Raphael kicked really hard and knocked that rock out of there, so that whole sort of cave on the end sort of flattened out. I did get in there and prop that rock back up and open the tank back up. Once I get done with all my other stuff that I keep hinting and alluding to, and again, I'm going to remind people, I'm not doing some major construction project. I'm not building a second fish room or automated plumbing or anything like that, so don't get too excited about the big reveal that's going to be coming up here soon. It's going to be cool, but it's not going to be anything major exciting like that. It's just kind of got me all discombobulated, and again, I've been having real motivational issues lately, and I've just been dragging my feet on all this stuff, whether it's been just shooting videos in general, working on my fish, or getting this project completed. But I feel like I'm swinging back around, coming out of the funk, and we should be moving right along and getting some stuff done here. So cross your fingers and we'll hope for the best. So moving on away from this end of the room, we'll get down here to my T-bar tank. Likewise, nothing really going on in here other than getting started on doing some more maintenance, getting it a little cleaned up. I've got grunge all over the plants and everything, and I've got an explosion of detritus worms. So those are all the little mundane, everyday, day-to-day kind of things going on in here. And as you might have just noticed, my angelfish was chasing a smaller one. Now you can see 2 smaller ones. Those are the serious new changes to this tank. I've added 2 new angelfish. I'm really hoping they sort out their aggression without being too problematic. I don't mind a little bit of chasing around and posturing and, you know, determining who's who. I expect that. They are angelfish. You know, angelfish are cichlids, so you're going to get aggression and territoriality and that sort of thing. So not too concerned about it. But if it continues, you know, too much, I start to see signs of stress, damaged fins, washed out color, anything like that, I'm going to have to get in there and do something about it. So the big one in the back there is a green giant. Sometimes when it's under the light the right way, those sort of patches and blotches light up and look very bluish sort of color. But most of the time it looks like this sort of vibrant emerald green, at least in person. I'm not sure if it always comes out quite the same on camera, but it is a stunning fish. It's really, really pretty color green. Sort of goes with the coloration on my German blue. I know a lot of people think this is a half black when they first look at it, because it certainly appears to be a half black, but it is not. This one's a German blue. And then this one is the one I'm really in love with. This is my crystal white, and it is just a stunner. It's one of the prettiest angelfish I've seen in a long time. It's just pure white. Even its eyeball is white with, of course, the black pupil. And it's not an albino, it's white. There's a difference, and this one is just absolutely stunning. So I'm really looking forward to this one growing up. It's got some traces of blue in the fins, and I would imagine once it matures we're going to see traces of blue in its body. It's so white that it doesn't come out on camera well enough. You don't get to see any detail. You can't see any of the little glistens and sparkles, and you don't get to hardly see the lateral line down the side. It almost washes out in the camera. It's so vibrant white. It's really a stunning fish. So I'm happy about that. And then, of course, if you've been following along with my other videos, you'll know I've been fighting that explosion of the detritus worms in this tank. And you can still see there's a few floating around here and there, but by and large, I've got them cleared out. I'm going to do another water change here in a few days once I get sort of caught back up a little bit, and we'll probably see the last of those detritus worms, at least until I get way behind on maintenance again and let the tank get overly filthy, and then I'll have an explosion of them, because they are in the tank. I'm not getting rid of them. I'm not fooling myself into thinking they're not in there. As long as their population numbers are under control and they're just in the substrate and gravel crawling around doing their worm thing, I don't care. They're harmless. They're part of the cleanup crew. They're not bothering me a bit. It's when I start slacking off and the detritus builds up to allow for an explosion of those worms to just start overpopulating the tank, and then you see them in huge numbers like that. That's a pretty good indication that I was way, way behind on my maintenance and the tank was really getting out of whack. So did 2 big water changes, some gravel vac, changed the filter, and we're getting them back in line. I've cleaned the plants down a little bit. I've treated the plants with hydrogen peroxide a couple times. You can already see what a difference that's starting to make. So we're getting there little by little. I'm going to get this tank looking nice and pretty again, and then hopefully we can stop this aggression that I keep seeing out of the corner of my eye, and things will be a lot better. So moving on, we've got my black ghost knifefish tank, and again I'm going to have to kind of stand over here. One of the things I forgot to mention, because they're no longer in the tank, is the red serpe tetras that were in the T-bar tank we were just looking at were giving my angelfish grief. They were nipping the fins and that sort of thing. So I took all of them out of there and added them to this tank. And this tank already has so many reds. I've got the glow light tetras, I've got the raspora hets, the tiger barbs, and then of course just the natural coloration of the rocks and the woodwork. There's a lot of earth tones in this tank, and then the red and black serpe tetras just look perfect in here. And it's a nippy, aggressive enough tank that they fit in just perfect in here. Everything's going just fine. So if you've noticed the bubbles, I'm working on another treatment of the red or the blue-green slime cyanobacteria. I actually still have to order some of the red slime cyanobacteria treatment, because I want to work on my brackish tank with that, and my red clawed crab tank is going to need some work soon too. And that red slime cyanobacteria remover works pretty well. I'll put links down below to both of them if you're interested in using the Ultralife products. They work really well, but I've just got so much stuff in this tank, I never get fully on top of it, and just over time it comes back. And so every so often I've got to get in here and just do a treatment. It gets it back under control, and then I get several months of being able to keep the tank looking nice again. Partially it's my fault. I've got it way too crowded. I've got it overpopulated and overstocked. I've got way too many places for the detritus to build up and the nutrients to, get out of control. And just this tank's always been sort of messy and sloppy. And, as I've said, I just do what I got to do to stay on top of it. And I just kind of think of it as part of the maintenance. So there'll be some updates coming up on this one here pretty soon as I finish up with that treatment. Getting on to the native tank. Now that we're looking, let's see if we've got any floaters. Alright, we've got the dead one that is stuck to the intake. That's the one we're going to talk about here in just a moment, and that is the only dead one I see at the moment. I just went to the bait and tackle shop the other day and I got some more of those golden shiners. I had to buy 1.5 dozen. They wouldn't sell me a dozen because I wanted to use plastic, and they won't do anything under $10, etc., etc. So I got a whole bunch of them. One of them turned out to be that oddball weird fish that is now dead. When I put it in the tank, it looked a little raggedy and beat up. Later in the afternoon, I noticed it was actually all covered in sort of white fuzziness. So I'm really hoping I didn't just infect this tank with columnaris or something like that. In case I did, I put salt in the tank yesterday, just regular old aquarium salt, sodium chloride, not the marine salts. I didn't start making the tank towards a brackish tank. It is just saltier now. And that's all I've done so far. I'm just keeping my eye on it. We're going to hope for the best. The fish that was infected is dead. I know that doesn't mean that the infection I put in the tank might not still be alive and well in there. But that fish isn't going to continue growing and carrying it on. And in fact, now that I see that he's dead, I'm going to get in there and take him out. I did see it earlier. The crayfish was eating it, and I just figured it was going to be consumed. But apparently it did not get fully consumed, and now I'm going to have to get in there and get it out. So that'll be another one of my little chores I got to do this evening while I'm down here working. Otherwise, not a lot going on here in the native tank. My little white suckerfish here, still doing pretty good. Doesn't look fantastic, but he looks better than he did the other day. And still feeding normally and everything else. So I'm hoping over time it will just sort of adapt to this warmer tank, because I really think that's what's causing it. The distress is the tank is a little too warm for it. I'm not going to purchase and install a tank chiller to bring the tank temperature down. Either the fish is going to adapt to it or it's not. I have taken some of the lighting off of this tank just to lower the temperature in the water, and that seemed to help. And then, of course, when I do water changes, I cool the tank temperature down considerably, too. I don't know if that helps or hurts. Maybe I should just let it get used to the warmer water rather than refreshing it with cool water every water change. I don't know. I guess time will tell. We'll find out. Moving right along, my snail tank here. I probably ought to get in this tank and do something. I did spot some planaria in this tank. Now, planaria are another kind of worm, but they're different than the detritus worms. The planaria are a flatworm as opposed to a roundworm. The detritus worms are a roundworm, very similar to earthworms that you might find in your backyard. These are probably more closely related to something like a leech, even though I don't really think a leech is probably closely related to flatworms. But they've got that same sort of flat body shape, that same sort of undulating move. They don't look like normal roundworms. So I've spotted some of them in this tank, and that's a problem. They are a problematic worm, unlike the detritus worms that are no issue. These little worms are predatory. They will get in there and kill and eat the eggs they find on the glass. You can see these little spots, like this little spot right here. Those are snail eggs. This little spot right here, these are snail eggs. And if those little planaria find them, they will eat those eggs, and it'll just kill off my breeding population of snails in here. So probably going to have to do something about that tank, even if it's just drain it, wipe it out, sterilize it, and start it over. It's only snails. It's not, I could even pull the snails out, put them in another bucket for a little while until I sterilize this tank and then put them back in. I don't think that would be an issue as long as I don't transfer any of those worms back in there. So we'll see what happens with that one. I was going to call this my T-bar and Gudgeon tank. This is no longer my T-bar and Gudgeon tank. It's just my Gudgeon tank. There is a rubber lip pleco in there. When I first got my angelfish, one of the tanks I wanted to put them in was this one. In fact, I wanted to put the green giant in my T-bar tank, so it would sort of complement that German blue. And then I wanted to put that white one in here because I thought that would just look amazing in this tank. So I very, very hesitantly put them in this tank in the bag. I floated them. I did not just put them in the tank free swimming. And I waited and I watched. And this one, who I have been informed is a female, I have no reason to believe it's not. I was told there would be a notchal hump if it was male. And I do vaguely remember reading something about a notchal hump, or at least a somewhat more mounded up looking forehead on the males. So we're going to assume that this is female. And she just hunkered down below the bag of fish and sat there as still as could be, watching and waiting. And I knew exactly what was going on. She's an ambush predator, and they'll sit motionless until, similar to the way a cat will strike at motion, not stillness. This one was waiting, so I came over and I gently touched the bag that the fish were in, and it spooked the fish enough that they moved a little bit. And as soon as they twitched, wham, she hit the bag. And I saw her do that twice and then move right back into position where she was just waiting and watching. So I said, well, that's not going to work. And either, whether she could actually swallow them or not, doesn't matter. Her attempting to, there's just no way I'm putting those angelfish. Both of them were pretty costly. They were not cheap angelfish. And so I'm not about to put them in here and even have them injured and marked up and scarred up just by her taking shots at them and trying to figure out she can't fit them in her mouth, So that was short-lived. It sort of dashed my hopes. Maybe there'll be some other fish I can put in here. I thought about putting my tiger barbs in here, but she's so big now, I think the tiger barbs would even get eaten with her. So I would probably get away with something like a convict, or something that size could probably go in here with her. But then I'd run into the same kind of problems I ran into with my T-bar. So I don't know. We'll see what goes on with this tank. For now, it's my Gudgeon tank, and that's just the way it's going to stay. Just about last on the list of what we can look at here today. Once again, let me get around the corner here and get around all this stuff in the middle of the floor. This tank is also in need of work, but this tank has actually had some work in the meantime since my 29 has actually had any work done. So this tank, while it does need the glass wiped down and it is due for a water change, in fact, it's probably due for a filter change too. I really ought to just get in there and change the filter. Going to do the 29 before I get to this one, though, because this one, as I said, has had some work done to it more recently than the 29. So otherwise, nothing at all that I can think of going on in this tank. Just ticking over, doing its thing. Haven't added anybody, haven't lost anybody. Nothing unusual with the filter. And that's about all there is. So we're going to move right along because this video is already stretching out to be longer than I wanted it to. Butterbean is going to be moving soon. I'm not going to say any more about that. But because of that, I've been sort of neglecting his tank. The water in there is clean. I have been on top of the water changes. I've just not really spent a lot of time scrubbing the glass down. I was curious about that red stuff that was growing all over the rocks. It looked like the red slime cyanobacteria, but it didn't quite look like the way I've seen it before. And indeed, when I got in there with my siphon and started drawing it out, it really didn't come out the way it has in the past. It was really thick, and it was really like attached to the rock. It didn't really want to come off on these big slimy sheets like it normally would. I expected the siphon to, pick up the corner and just, suck the whole thing right off the top of that rock, and it didn't. You can see where I had to sort of scrape and wipe, and in the process of all of that, I wound up toppling the caves over a little bit and knocking them down. And I'm sure Butterbean's in there somewhere. I just don't see him. He has not been happy with me as of late, because his tank is getting way too small for him, and I don't see him anywhere. He's got to be in the back behind all those rocks now. Let me see if I can come around this angle a little bit and see him. Oh, I can hardly see anything in this tank. It's so dirty. Well, I'm assuming he's still in there. If tragedy has struck, I will certainly do an update video and let you know, but I think for now what we're looking at is Butterbean's just hunkered down hiding in those rocks somewhere. I did have it set up so that I could look through the tank, and now, as I said, those rocks have... Oh, there he is. I don't know if you can see him or not, but you can kind of almost make out that movement through all that filth. So once I said, once again, the glass is filthy, the water is not. He's not in there swimming around in some horribly, terribly neglected tank in filthy, filthy water or anything like that. In fact, I just did a water change the day before yesterday, I think. So he's fine. He's just getting cooped up. The tank's getting too small for him, but we're going to be making some changes real soon. He's going to get a new home, and we'll shoot some video on that later. So that's pretty much where I've got to end it. Can't show you what I got in my quarantine tank yet. Got something new in there. Also have a few fish in my quarantine tank in the other room. Those will come up here in the real near future as well. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one.